Howdy, cadre. Um, Different video right after the last one I found. Let's let's try and shake it up a little bit. Oh, maybe it would be good to get a different angle here. I don't know. Oh, that's nice. There's a globe there. That's pretty cool. Um, Oh, is that dramatic? It's casual maybe. Um, Corpus Callosum, ambivalence. Maybe that's the summary of the first part of this. Is that I don't like. I think there's too much backlighting. Didn't I bring that with me? Take that as a no. Yep, no. Oh well. Whatever. You can hear me. So the convergence could be a result of that polarity resolving itself, an acceptance that of centrism in some ways. And I'm not talking political at this point. Just being centered in myself rather than feeling, I don't know. See, I'm kind of dancing around the term bipolar in part out of sensitivity, but it it's a good word generally speaking, and I'm not diagnosing myself or anybody in a medical or psychological sense when I say that, in this context, or usually I mean, I obviously wouldn't be diagnosing someone, and I'm sure if you looked it up, well, I'm not sure. I would guess that bipolar would be something that would be difficult to self-diagnose. Slap? Do I want to get back to that? There's one trigger that's been getting worse and worse. Um, not like personally psychologically, but I suffer from what at one point I called hip emo. Um, from hippie meaning focusing on love and love of humanity, love of the world, love of nature, um, and almost radical pacifism as well. And then emo, referring to feeling that stuff on an emotional level, personal level, because I noticed this pattern of world events, stuff in the news, really affecting me psychologically. And in the past, it was to the point of losing sleep, affecting work, Uh, but mainly, I've always been high functioning emotionally, and I think it's partly my my upbringing. I think my parents' marriage um, definitely fits the two hemisphere model that my dad was more. I didn't finish talking about the brain damage to corpus callosum. Um, we'll get into that in a second. Um, my dad being more left-brained, rational, scientific, mathematic minded, and my mom being more right-brained, creativity, communication, interpersonal relationships. And I feel like in part that they divorced because, and this is just my personal interpretation, they're my parents, and I think I've talked to my mom about this, and she agreed with me for the most part, um, at least in broad strokes. I think their marriage relied on, yeah, so my mom kind of coming more than halfway. That she would meet my dad on his territory when they communicated, and of course she's coming from the other side. But I think over time you live with someone, and if that's how, if that's not only how you communicate but how you parent, and then those children grow up to go to college and stuff, that's a lot of time when you're influencing each other. And if your communication is involves one person always crossing the divide, or more often or more significantly, then that becomes the status quo. And I feel like that's an amazing metaphor for a political system, that um, the people on the left have been pulled to the right over time. But I don't want to get too much into politics. The point is, all of this stuff gets complicated and hard for me to talk about quickly, which is why I've been doing this for um, 17 years. Is that right? Close. 16 years here on YouTube. And I for a long time, I separated my Facebook use from my YouTube use. And in a way, this could be seen as this split again, that Facebook I saw as for personal friends and family, um, people I knew in real life. And I still have a very small friend count, because that was my starting point, was it's just going to be people I knew. Um, and even on YouTube, I gave up on the numbers frenzy, that I never wanted to talk to as many people as possible. I wanted to find receptive people who would understand and appreciate my messages. Um, and my brief brush with weblebrity, or influencer status or whatever, um, I felt like I dealt with well. But in retrospect, I know that even before that, well, no, that it probably, when that hit, someone made a response video that could be seen as making fun of me. I don't see it that way. Um, Making fun with my image is a good way to put it. He misinterpreted a few fundamental things that actually made me feel better, because it helped me realize that these weren't personal attacks. He's engaging and playing with the image he has of me. And I had already talked. In fact, I was talking. The video he responded to was me talking about how we all have a different image of the way the world is in our own heads. So we're in this reality, in this universe, we experience a what at a minimum is an allegory for a multiverse, because we each have our own image of the world in our head, our own personal understanding of how things work. And then even beyond that, we each, whenever we interact or encounter somebody else, we each have our own image of that person. So as I exist to myself, is tainted by my own perceptions of and feelings about myself. And I think that's pretty ambivalent, and I've strived for balance over time. But even beyond that, the image of me is different in each of my viewers or subscribers or friends or family or relatives or even just acquaintances, former coworkers, etc. And some of those visions are very negative, and that it bothers me. But having a greater understanding of the complexity of what's going on can help to see that as natural, that I'm going to appear differently to different people, not only based on their biases and perceptions, their limited view of me, but also the relationship, the needs and demands going back and forth, the coworkers are a different they can form a much simpler concept of you, because they don't have to think about you as much, except in the capacity where you're working for the same company on a team or side by side or whatever. Anyways, so boy, this is all over the place, and I feel like I can sense the synapses in all parts of my brain firing and interconnecting, and different parts taking over. There was a time when I was under the influence of substances. We used to hang out and watch Twin Peaks, and we were done, and I went out to my car, and I knew I shouldn't be driving, and so but there was this battle in my head, and it manifested itself almost as a hallucination, that I felt like everybody I knew was in the car with me, and they were saying their own perspectives. And what I realized later is that these are, the images I have of them corresponding with parts of my brain. Obviously, they were all my own thoughts, but as a way of reconciling the chatter and the cognitive dissonance, I was imagining them in the car with me, each holding on to a different part of me, and kind of pulling to get my attention. And some of them were saying, most of them were saying, don't drive, just sit here for a little while until this passes. You're not in a rush to go anywhere. And the the dangers of if I were to drive, and then my desire to get home was like a small part of that, but that I don't remember that having a specific person associated with it or personality at the time. I mean, maybe it was schoolmates or something. Um, anyways, it was a bizarre experience, but I sat there in my car for a long time, um, until I was ready to drive the relatively safe back roads slowly home. Um, and I don't think I've done anything close to drinking and driving, or driving under the influence since then. Kind of learned my lesson without any serious repercussions. And that can go the wrong way, obviously. If, some people, if they get home safe. Anyways, yeah, I don't recommend putting yourself or other people in danger. That's part of the point of that story. But the main point in me bringing it up is this experience of the different forces, and you could break it down to id, ego, superego, but part of the idea that I'm exploring here is superego is kind of what you've learned, what your conscious mind has learned is expected of you by society, or other people. I mean, society is other people, but it works on a much more personal level when it's family. Um, but I think what your family wants for you is a space that's kind of between ego and superego. Maybe it falls in superego, but it would kind of be a different layer than what the law expects of you, or your leader, whoever that is, expects of you. And leadership has fragmented, um, and maybe it's because of that so many people seem to be latching on to specific personalities, these cults of personalities, whether they're celebrities, or social media influencers, or politicians, or um, religious leaders. Um, yeah, it seems dangerous and problematic to me. But okay, recentering Corpus Callosum. Oh, the the horror, the existential crisis that happened in college. I heard it. I think it was probably a radio program on This American Life, or I think it was NPR, a weekend program on NPR. Um, and I remember it in my hometown. I probably was in college, but it was maybe summer. Anyways, that's not important, but it was over 20 years ago, if that helps your timeline of what I'm talking about. Um, People who had severe brain damage, often from car accidents or a horrible attack. Um, from what I understood, if that corpus callosum is split, and you're fairly right hand dominant, That would mean you favor, I think, your left eye, left side of your brain is stronger. And so your conscious mind um, ends up being, it was dominantly in the left side, and once that corpus callosum, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right either, um, callosum, it's all Greek to me, haha. Um, the you end up, basically your conscious mind is now restricted to your dominant half, and that split separates your other hemisphere, but that still exists and has thoughts. It just can no longer communicate to your conscious mind in the same way it used to. And there's often a lot of relearning that has to happen because you're starting over and forming nerves on your dominant side, for conscious thought, to replace stuff that used to happen on the other side. And the part that scared me is, these are rare injuries and conditions, but from the study of them, people have, like, wandering limb syndrome. I don't know what it's called. I'm just throwing words out there. But they will have, if they're left brain dominant, you know, and right handed, um, they may lose a lot of control over their left hand. Like it's just harder to use. And also, it sometimes will just like do its own thing. And for some people, that means just like it may be tapping, and they went for no reason. They don't understand why. They're not consciously doing it. They may have the leg on that side bounces or kicks. And in extreme cases, sometimes that hand gets violent and tries to hit them at random times, even trying to choke them at times. They have to fight off their alien hand, if you will, their foreign hand, the one they've lost control or connection with. But the most amazing cases, there was at least one where the guy felt like his offhand, his other hand, his non-dominant hand, was trying to communicate with him. That it seemed at specific times it was trying to get his attention, and so he eventually gave it a pen and sat with it and gave it time with paper and tried to listen, you know, tried to communicate with the other half, and it would actually start like writing things, maybe distorted, maybe reversed, certainly very uncontrolled. Anyways, this horrified me, the idea of losing touch with half of oneself, that you could have almost ghost thoughts, a phantom half that you were so cut off from. I yeah, it probably scares me more than most physical dangers. I mean, there's I think I have a healthy fear of heights. Healthy meaning balanced. That um, I've always found it interesting, the perspective, but it is visceral. There's something in me trying to communicate the danger. just from the site, and even simulated, like in Minecraft videos. Um, One of my favorite new subscriptions is a guy who just started. He had played Minecraft years ago, but he's now just started doing Let's Plays in Minecraft, and he hasn't experienced it since I don't know, maybe 8 years ago or something. And there's been a lot of development um, and additions in that time. Big things, including the recipe book, a lot of the newer resources, the nether biomes. There's several surface world biomes that he hasn't encountered yet because he hasn't traveled enough. But I'm excited about it because he's starting fresh and sharing it, and he's trying to discover things on his own, um, without too much input. And he has a very small subscriber base, so I know it's a labor of love. And he's not, like me. He's like I still am. He's kind of there more for to share his experience and um, yeah, he's not focused, I don't think, on becoming popular or monetizing it or getting the highest subscriber base possible, or the view numbers or anything. Um, Probably I had a longer path to get through that. Um, Although I also watched other people and saw, if you approach it like a grind, it's going to be a grind. And if I had approached this as a grind, I certainly I would have more subscribers at this point. Um, but there's a lot of choices that I made that specifically counteract that. Like all this Minecraft stuff doesn't help me build um, a type of following um, that's focused on my reasons for being here, or but in a way that's all part of the same thing, because it's going to allow discovery moving forward, unless YouTube wipes it out at some point. I don't know. I've already gotten a copyright claim for 2 minutes of music that and it doesn't affect anything. The way they deal with copyright, that's a whole nother thing I need to talk about, has changed and advanced over time. And I approve of a lot of it, but there's a lot of shenanigans still going on now. The corporations are just making blanket copyright claims automated. They provide a database, and YouTube is scanning their own content, comparing it to these vast databases. And some of these, anyways, I'm getting off track. Copyright. Oh, I feel like I'm burdened with knowledge and I should be sharing it. But the bigger thing is freedom of speech, which I think the general populace has a very misguided notion of. And I think maybe I can talk about that right now. I think I have space on my phone. These are longer videos than I was hoping, but um, yeah, this phantom limb thing, being cut off from half of yourself. I think it's a strong allegory or metaphor for American politics, that we've been our two-party system has grown so strong and ambivalent, so polarized, um, in a very linear way, left versus right. And I was going to talk about that with the whiteboard. Maybe I should put the whiteboard here. You probably don't have any clue why I'm broadcasting from my bathtub. Um, those never got uploaded. They're still on a computer someplace. I think maybe I uploaded one. I was worried about singing on YouTube. Which, why? I mean, maybe it seems personal. Um, Possibly setting yourself up for judgment. But I feel like I got through that. It took some time. But yeah. So we're here to try and bridge the gaps. Um, my head is a metaphor for the world, and the world is a metaphor for the universe, and or the solar system, the universe, multiverse. We keep learning more. There's Sagittarius A star, super black hole at the center of our galaxy, the Milky Way. And my battery's low, so maybe I'm done for tonight. Possible subjects in the future would be freedom of speech, which I was expecting to get to, but didn't. And the other things I mentioned. Multiverse. I can't. It blows my mind that that's mainstream now, because that was part of what I was hinting at in the first video I posted with my hands. I didn't just want to swap red and blue from left and right. I felt like it needed something more, and so when I wrote the words, I was gonna write blue on the red hand and red on the blood hand, red on the blue hand and blue on the red hand, and I don't remember which was which. I think my left was blue because I was reversing it from, kind of mirror dimension sort of thing. But then I went, again, a whim led me to, as I went to write the words, I realized that it's more complex than just left versus right and just mirroring. And so I ended up swapping, kind of cutting the words in half and writing rue and bled. And I think I put bled on my blue hand and rue on my red hand because I didn't want bled and on the red. I thought that was too on the nose. Boy, what are we even doing here? Is this really public? Is this really going live? One of the parts of the convergence I wanted to mention is that I recorded and uploaded a video about hair loss, kind of my personal journey with hair loss, and now everybody's talking about alopecia, which I was not. I was talking about trichotillomania, but and neither of those are what I have. I just pull some of my hairs when they bother me. My new habit is pulling at my own back, which has bothered me for a long time, and I've largely ignored it. But now, after getting this, and over this weekend, I'm now kind of sore. I've been trying to ease into it and take it slowly, but it's such a nice change to feel like I can rub my own back, basically stretch my muscles, relax them, and I can already, just from a weekend, I can feel more flexibility. Um, my neck has been looser, and I haven't really focused on my neck much. I am more concerned about that, but I'm trying to be careful. I learned that lesson on the roof of my childhood home. Um, I was just talking about heights. Um, when we first would go up on my roof as a well, my brother, dad, and I usually, sometimes my mom joined us, but not always. Um, I would be scared and super cautious. And there was one time where we were getting close to finishing, or maybe we had finished, or maybe we had done half and we were going to do half later. Um, the our roof, we had a 2-story house, which was pretty tall, and we wouldn't go. Us kids wouldn't go up initially and help with that. But then we had a lower part of our roof that covered the garage, the joined garage, that sloped down so it was within about 7 feet of the ground. And in the winter, snow would accumulate underneath that. So some of the heavy winters we used to have with lake effect snow, um, and before the global warming crept further and further, the the snow pile could build up to close to the roof. In fact, it was possible for my dad to climb up without a ladder at times. And then, as we pretty much had to just bring the snow down the one way, because over the garage it was that just big span, 2-car garage, plus a sidewalk, that was covered next to. So anyways, we'd go up there and shovel the snow down. And there was one day, we were sitting up there. I was admiring the view or something, or maybe we were working. But my dad said, "How you feeling?" And I said, "Good. I'm getting comfortable up here now," because I had felt nervous and cautious. And he said, "Okay, time to get down." And I said, "No, wait. I just said I'm just getting comfortable now." And he said, "Well, that's the time you're going to get hurt. Is when your sense of danger subsides and you start feeling comfortable. That's when it gets dangerous, because you're more likely to be thinking about other things, not paying attention to your footing or the dangers at hand. And that's when you're going to make a misstep and slip." And that probably was a very important lesson for me, and partly why I am such a cautious individual when it comes to a lot of things, especially my influence on the world. And then as I've gone on, there's been many times where I've had good intentions, but they've been received wrong, or there's been unintended complications. And I ended up feeling very guilty and responsible for the negative that I felt I had caused, even though there was no intent behind it. So yeah, all over the place with this hour and 10-minute journey, 2-part journey. But thanks for joining me. We'll revisit those important topics. Copyright was the other one, freedom of speech, and the First Amendment. Second Amendment would be a good thing to talk about. Excessive use of force, escalation. These are all good subjects. Fair use, of course, within the copyright, and what the industry has moved towards. Social media. Parasocial relationships. That's a good one that we could cover. Cosmology. We could try and get into that. um, more about the my political theory that's evolved over time. Um, insert catchphrase here. You know, thanks.